Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hear we are on streaming now. Welcome to our very special event. It's called Check In with Chi. I'm Hannah Sung. I'm here with Chi Nguyen. Hi, Chi.
Hi, Hannah. It's so nice to see
Hi.
you. I
I
wish we were
know.
sitting in a room together, but this is pretty good.
This is what we are doing in
This
these
is what we're
times.
doing.
Yeah. I'm so glad to see you too. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Obviously, we are here because you have some big things happening. You want to become the Liberal candidate for Spadina-Fort York in the next provincial election. Hashtag on Polly. I'm here to chat with you because, people need to know about you, who you are, what your values are. You promised me this would be fun, so I'm here just to have a good time and chat with you. Um, I thought maybe I would let people know that, well, first of all, thank you for taking some time to come to this because, time is so precious. And I think you're gonna like what you get to know about Chi. You can ask your own questions as well. I am told that you can type them right in to the thing you're on. We are streaming on YouTube, but she and I are on Zoom. So there's a very nice gentleman named Alex who is doing all the technical stuff, and he's going to send me the questions when you type them in. So if you have any questions, please go for it. First, Chi and I are going to chat a little bit so that everybody here can have the opportunity to get to know you. Um, Maybe first we should just tell people how we met, how we became.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was working at the Globe and Mail, and you were working for.
I was running a social enterprise called Parker P Consulting, which was a social enterprise docked inside of an amazing organization called White Ribbon. And I was the CEO. I mean, I should stop with the chi puns, but I just feel like
I
as
like
I,
it.
I'm just going to keep running with them because I think they work for me. So I was
I
the
love
CEO.
Geo. Yeah, I was just blown away by you. Working with you was really satisfying because you just get things done, but it was also fun. It was hard work, and we
Yeah.
somehow managed to have a good time doing it. So
Thank
I'm
you.
really glad that we stayed friends. Yeah.
Me too. And, the questions we were holding were really critical. It was the space, the time right after Me Too. And it was like one of the big first public conversations about where an industry that really was challenged with that, the arts and entertainment industry could take this work. And, we've seen a lot come out of that work that we seeded back in late 2017.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was so pregnant at the time.
You were so pregnant. And then the project was over, and the next time I saw you, you had a little human being with you. So that was really fun.
Mhm.
Um, so listen, the point of tonight is for people to get to know you. I know that you've been working in the nonprofit charitable sector your whole career. It's been 20 years, worked for various places, including the United Way, the White Ribbon Campaign, as you mentioned. You worked in federal politics as a staffer to Carolyn Bennett. But right this moment, this pandemic moment, I guess, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the shape of your life, who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. Um, Thanks for that question. I am a mom of two boys. They kind of have to be the center of my universe. They really are. So I will confess that that lens colors a lot of what I'm doing in my life right now. The things that I care about, the things that I'm going to fight for, is all with the view of thinking about what's the present that we have for them and what's the future we're building. Um, and so, right now, these days, I'm working as a consultant, supporting a number of different national organizations and programs responding to COVID-19. So it's been a really intense whirlwind year. We're all rolling up our sleeves in different ways to contribute. And I feel very lucky to get to do that out in the world. Yeah, as you talked about, I've spent the last 20 years working at a number of different organizations, really always looking for, who's the best in class, who's asking big questions, who's thinking about how we bridge between different ways to solve the big problems, right? No one's got a single answer, and the big messy problems are going to require all of us, all hands on deck, and that's always the approach that I've been taking, that I want to see governments think about, and that's what I want to see in leadership, right? Understanding that we have to build bridges, we have to ask tough questions, and understand that no one's got a single fix for this.
Mhm. So I know that you have a lot of energy and drive. I mean, people can hear that by the way that you speak. I'm wondering though, why right now? Why is now the time where you want to get into politics?
So I feel like I have to cast back a little bit to answer this question. Um, I've always been, in my very start of my career, interested in the question of women in politics and the place of women's leadership in those spaces. And I feel really um, always wanted to see more women in leadership, right? And when I started to ask those questions in the late 90s, early 2000s, the number of women in federal parliament was around 21%. We finally bumped up closer to 30, and provincially we're at around 40% right now. Um, uh, but what I saw were these institutions of power, these places where decisions get made about how we invest and build our communities, how we respond, the infrastructure we create, the investments that we consider important. Um, how can we do that as effectively as possible if those chambers and those places don't look like us? And so I've held that series of questions over the last 20 years as I've dipped in and out of different ways of contributing and trying to build the world that I want to live in, whether it's through the community involvement I've had at Jane's Walk or Story Planet, places that I think really are about imagination and creativity and placemaking in the city. Or, some of the feminist work that I've been involved in, like pushing for emergency over the counter contraceptive pills, like those kinds of questions around like, what can we do to unlock and make sure that we all have an even footing or chance to really do well in this society. And so for me, for right now, and why I want to do this now, it's because I don't think our leadership is working for us. I am deeply disappointed at the way women in particular are being treated in this pandemic time, right? I think about who is holding space, who's doing the caregiving, who is showing up, who is making sure that families stay together, still packing lunches, still doing all of that additional work. It's women's labor. And that needs to be recognized and centered in how we do government. And I want to see that desperately back at Queen's Park. And I don't see it under the Ford government. So that's why for me right now, this is what this is about. It's protecting and building the future that I want for my kids.
Hmm. Yeah, this pandemic has really shown us a lot of things that maybe we knew before, but it's so much more urgent
Yeah.
in the situation for women, as you say, and work and the economy and people of color and vulnerable workers. And yeah, there's just a lot of decisions being made that are not great.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I don't, I want to believe it's not malicious. Um, but these there are some calculations and decisions being made that are leaving people out, like hanging on by a thread, right? We're leaving this to individual responsibility when it's actually a collective responsibility, right? That is what we want from a mature government, and that is not what we have right now. It's not.
mhm,
It's not enough. Like,
mhm.
not everyone's getting a chance to get in the lifeboat.
Well, I want to talk about community for a minute. I want to talk about the Fort York Spadina riding. Uh, it's a very big riding. It's geographically very big. I want to know about your personal connection
Yeah.
to the riding.
I spent a lot of time in that riding, in sort of a particular part of the community, the southern part of Chinatown, and the Alexandra Park community and Scatting Court at Bathurst and Dundas. Um, much of my teen years was spent hanging out at that community center. It was the place where I had my first job. I ran a gymnastics program there on Friday nights after school, the Ryerson Public School, and we had like 32 kids. I shouldn't actually say this because we were totally breaking fire code. But it was amazing. And the kids, we just had a ball. It was a good time. Anyways, I was involved in community programming in that community for about a decade. Um, and really felt like I grew up there. Like, it was the place that taught me what it meant to have a good life. You know, you could be yourself, you could be safe, you could show up as who you were, and there were adults there who cared about my future, cared about making sure that I was learning and growing, and not just at Scatting Court, at St. Stephen's Community House as well, right? And so in some ways I feel very, very privileged and lucky to have grown up downtown where these services were there, youth focused services that let people figure out their voice. Like I got to be at like involved in like cutting edge amazing social service programming from like the time I was like 13, 14.
And what
um
era was this? What years?
this was the 90s, and like I've been thinking the last few weeks or whatever, but like deep nostalgia for the 90s. It was a good time. It's like the pre-Facebook era, and actually,
Mm,
at one point, yeah, it's just a very different time, right? Like,
mhm.
um, I um, I managed to hustle my way into a internship when I was 15, 16, worked at TVO Kids. I was their first high school intern. And, it was like really old school. I picked up the phone and called a person and I was like, hi, I'm interested. Do you want to take
You're
me
a
for an internship?
go-getter. You always have been.
Yeah, I've just always been very curious, right? Like, what are the systems that help shape our culture? And at that point, I was like, I want to be in kids broadcasting and kids television because I think, I saw how TV shaped my childhood, and you can do lots of great things with it. And so I've always been interested, like, what are the tools that we have that teach us good values, that center the community, that really, focus on empathy, right? And that's that's been a big part of the questions I've held for a long time.
Mhm. And I know you really care about kids. You mentioned that you have children of your own. Last summer, you and I reconnected in a big way, and we worked together to do some safer school advocacy. Why don't you tell us about Ontario Safe and what really mattered to you at that time? What was driving your advocacy work?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all in this kind of like moment of like panic. Like, what was it going to look like in the fall if we returned to school, right? So, all these months off, all these parents ready to get their kids out of their hair, and some return to some kind of normalcy, but knowing like the evidence was saying smaller classroom sizes, good ventilation, good PPE, all of this, and not seeing how this was translating like lots of talk, some dollars committed, but actually when it translated down and you did the math, it just didn't add up, right? And so, I felt very lucky to connect with you and Kelly Eggers who really launched this, and a number of amazing folks to, really push one piece I think that the two of us really worked on was a video piece, and I think it was great for me. It was really like a chance for people to document, to hold space, to kind of reflect on where we are, our fears, our concerns, to see each other and recognize none of this is easy. There are no right choices for families right now, and it's super hard. And the choices that you're making are the ones that we have, right? And so, giving people permission to kind of share in that together, I think was really powerful, and was a really you know important moment to kind of mark. And I don't want us to kind of move forward without remembering what's happening through this time, right? Before
Mhm.
all the pandemic kicked off, we were pretty pissed off and showing up at Queen's Park over other decisions that were about, cuts to education. And I don't want us to lose that fire and that frustration that we aren't seeing our government show up for us right now.
Mhm. It's true. I mean, I think it's I don't know. It's a kind of a shame right now. I feel like people are really exhausted with the pandemic, but then I see people like you, you just don't quit. And so, I mean, in fact, you're embarking on something entirely new and it's, very inspiring. I want to remind people who are here in this live stream that you can ask questions if you want. You can throw them in the comments and then we will get them and I'll help facilitate asking those questions. Um, you and I have talked before, Chi, about just inclusivity in politics and representation in politics. Yeah, why do you think there's such a problem with that? I mean, I think it's fair to say that politics just it's not an inclusive enough space.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. And, in this year that we've been doing lots of unpacking and unlearning about our systems, I actually think it's time to shine the light on politics, right? And it's not to say that we haven't had good questions and explorations about gender and race and stuff in politics. And I think there have been people who've been there who are holding the space and asking really tough questions. But the deep work to transform that institution that has, historically was built by white men for white men, right?
White, heterosexual, property owning
Definitely. Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
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 Able-bodied.
Mostly named John. Um,
Sorry to laugh.
I mean, we shouldn't laugh, but it's the truth, right? And it's interesting, right? Like I shared this, you know, we live in a city that really believes in diversity and strength, all of this, right? Like that's our slogan. And I was watching an event the other day, and it was really interesting to me to see all of the elected officials speak about this one community. They send their greetings. It was like a Lunar New Year event, and I was like, hold on a second. And like, I like many of these elected leaders, right? I think they're good people. I think they're doing good service. And we actually want good people to step up into good service. It's not easy work. It's really thankless, but it's so important. But to see, you know, an event for the Chinese community being kicked off by 7 white faces was just like, oh, we actually haven't really started to have the conversation about white supremacy in parliament and in our elected bodies and in Queen's Park, right? That's a difficult conversation. It's going to take a whole lot of bravery for parties to actually start to do that work. I'm not suggesting that we do it overnight, but we do need to start somewhere. If we want our systems to actually be humanized and to show up with dignity, then we need to start that work. And it's not going to be an overnight piece. That's a big part of why I'm running right now. I think about my 2 kids and the things I can model for them, and to show that a woman of color can be in leadership and to hold and come with strength and show up, bring her experience to the table. That's really, it's really important for me. I think that's an important signal, and I'm really excited about that. But that doesn't mean that that one person is going to change that culture. It's going to take many of us to openly ask the questions, to really shift how we're doing the things, and show up and collaborate across the aisles and just behave differently, right? Like be mature in government in the ways that we want, Ontarians want their leadership to show up.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying it's never one person. It's never one savior, Hail Mary individual. It's always got to be that kind of group, a group made up of people who can have positive influence and a kind of, you know, galvanizing effect, where we can all kind of learn together and
Yeah.
grow together. It's so true. It's never going to be just one person. We have a great question here. Why did you choose the Liberal Party at the provincial level?
That is a great question. So, I think about some of the values and things that I really believe in, and the ways in which the Liberal Party has shown up for those. Right? I think of the last Liberal government, and I picture this queer, feminist grandmother governing, and stewarding our province, and it makes me smile because I know she was thinking in a way that was intergenerational, and I know she was thinking about the future she was building for her grandkids, right? I know that there's a real maturity in that party of being able to do big, bold things for this province. I think about the amazing work that happened with the Gender Violence Roundtable and some of those efforts provincially. And to me, that is a place where we can get stuff done. I don't think any political party is perfect, and if anyone claimed that they were, then that would be, you know, I'm, yeah, I think that would be surprising. But there's a lot in the Liberal Party that makes me really proud.
Hmm. Well, there's another question about the Liberal Party. What do you think is the thing that sets you apart from other liberals? It's a little L, but I think they mean big L. What sets you apart?
I think within the party, I probably am definitely more on the progressive side of the party. I want to see us continuing to push on experiments like universal basic income, we were in the middle of that work, that research work, right? We were gathering the evidence, we were telling the story. We had, a whole cohort of people who were, expected to kind of be able to make some commitments in their life. And the Doug Ford government just ripped that program out from under them, right? And these are people's lives. Like there was no reason for that, right? See the thing through. If you didn't like the story and the data at the end, don't move forward. But like, don't disrupt people's lives. Like that's just mean. So I really think there's room in the Liberal Party for some of those progressive ideas to come back. I'm really excited about, I'm kind of a democracy geek. I worked for a couple of years with an amazing organization called Mass LBP that was really interested in playing in the democratic innovation space and has been running something called citizens panels for the last 12 years. I could do a whole geek out on this, but I won't, except for to say that like it is all about how we inform our publics to have them better engaged in policymaking and contributing to our society and feeling good about the kind of city and community we want to build. That's my like Coles Notes version of this. All this to say is that I would love for the party to kind of be reimagined with that energy again. There are some rumblings and some conversations again, which I haven't heard in a long time about the idea of like lowering the voter age and down to 16. And I want more democracy. More democracy is good for us all. So we should like go all in on this because actually that is when we have healthy beautiful societies where lots of ideas can flourish, right? Is more practice, more like community involvement, and that can take many forms.
I had a question, but somebody else has thrown in a question, so I'd rather ask that one. When you are an MPP, how do you think we get accessible childcare to the top of the provincial agenda? How would you marshal the political will to get it done?
I feel like we've studied this question to death. We've had so much advocacy around this, so much wisdom and leadership from many women. We just got to deliver and get it done, right? So we can take out of the Quebec playbook and do some of what they've done. We just have to make the political decision to do it, right? I don't know what the exact mechanics look like, but I do know what the values around that are. And it is about unlocking the capacity of families, often mothers, to get back into the workforce when they're ready and when they choose to do so in a way that's accessible. We know what the values are, we know how to deliver it, we just got to do it. I don't want us to kind of needle back and forth on this. I honestly thought we were going to have childcare by the time my kids rolled around, and I still cannot believe the childcare bills we've had to pay over the last 4 or 5 years. It's astonishing. You swallow it up and you do it, but lots of people have made different choices, and that's awful, right? Because they couldn't get to affordable childcare. So it has to just be a leadership question. We'll
Mhm.
figure out how to do it. We've learned to do a lot in this pandemic in terms of getting governments to move quickly. So we're learning those new muscles, and we need to retain that capacity as well.
And I really hope there will be a political will, as we knock on wood, come out of the pandemic. We've seen all the numbers on how it's wreaking havoc in terms of women in the workplace. I just want to mention, Chi, that I think your earring is rubbing on your mic. Is it cool if I just tell you that? I think you
Yes.
can't hear that, so I don't know if you can. Yeah, cool,
Is that
awesome.
better? You'll let
Yeah,
me know. Okay.
it's the hazards of dangly earrings, which are beautiful, but
Thank you.
audio wise. There's another question. What would be your top three agenda items when you're MPP?
Thanks. That's a really great question. I've been thinking a lot about the big challenges that people are facing in our community today. I think housing affordability, especially in the downtown, is a core issue. I think access to, childcare, but really investment in families, right? So that's both childcare and public education. And then finally, something that's really close to my heart is the idea of, client-centered, patient-centered social services, right? We do all kinds of job employment programs, food security, food banks, etc. And I don't know that we always design them with the user experience in mind. And I think about my mother's journey. My mom has had mental health issues for the majority of her adult life. She's schizophrenic. And the ways in which she has been cared for really beautifully have been really successful when we figured out that right client-centered model, right? And so that is an approach that makes a lot of sense across many streams of programming. And I'd like us to do more of that.
Mhm. So to recap, you said housing and affordability, you said childcare
Investing in
for young
families.
families,
Yeah.
and you said social supports and mental health.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can, we only have a couple of minutes left, but I just wanted to dig down a little more deeply into that first one and get some more thoughts on housing and affordability in terms of, what you'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really challenging, complex issue that is not just a Toronto issue. It's all across the country, and there are many smart people trying to work on this, right? But we can, as a provincial government, do more work around inclusionary zoning. We can, contribute to that and say, like, we expect any new development to have 25, 30% affordable housing. So we can set the conditions that allow us to do that. We can try and figure out other ways to incentivize, more of the kind of middle mix, so it's not all condo towers that we're building. We do want that density, but we also need to kind of think about the models that we're looking at. And I know there's a lot of social innovation and experimentation happening right now. We also have a lot of folks who, are really living sort of paycheck to paycheck, and we've got to figure out how to make sure that they have an ability to stay in the city, right? I just think about all the people who can't stay in Toronto, how expensive it's gotten, that flight out to Hamilton. It's great for Hamilton, but like, we're losing our artists, we're losing our writers, we're losing a lot of that, like, the things that make Toronto special, and that's really heartbreaking to me. So that's, it's not as though, again, one person has a singular idea around this, but I think many of us need to kind of really go in on understanding the complexities of this problem and really trying to tackle that.
Mhm. And when you mention people needing to leave the city because they're priced out, it's I just think it's so sad. The more
Yeah.
socially vulnerable you are, the more you need your community, and you can't just. I mean, it's a very sad thing for the market to displace you from
Yeah.
your community.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are Chi supporters in this room, and so I have to ask, for people who want to support you, what can they do now? Because you are not the candidate yet. This is
Yeah.
what you want to become. What are the ways in which people can help that come to fruition?
Thanks, Hannah. So yeah, you're right that we're at the first sort of stages of this journey for me. The very first step is for me to win the nomination to become the Liberal candidate. So in a couple months' time, date TBD, there will be a nomination contest. And so my job right now is to connect to as many people in Spadina-Fort York, and the geography is massive. It's like the distillery district on one end all the way to Liberty Village, and Dundas is sort of the north border for a good chunk of that, and then kind of jogs down at Bay. Anyways, it's a big. We talked about the vastness of this riding. So right now it's to help me connect to people who live there, so I can have a conversation with them and I can get them excited about the kind of city we want to build and the kind of city we want to maintain. So that's job number one, is to help me connect with people who can become members to be able to support and vote for me the nomination contest. And then once that hurdle is through, then we'll have work to do to get to the general election in October of 2022. But right now, it's meeting good people who also share the values and want to build the city that we both love.
So you literally want to be having conversations. You want to get on the phone. You want to be
Hmm.
on the email. You want to be talking to people who live in Fort York, Spadina. It's kind of tough in the pandemic. You can't knock on doors,
Yeah.
but you want to be having those conversations. And I guess for people who are watching and they want to uh, connect you to folks in Fort York, Spadina, your website is the best way.
Yep, you can go to www.electchi.ca, and there's all kinds of information about the geography, how to get involved, if you're able to make a contribution, sign up to do phone banking and help me connect to more people. So we've got an amazing group of volunteers. I have to say, I love my team. They're amazing. There's so many good humans. I feel so lucky to be working with them.
They're very
Um,
cool.
they're great. And some of them I haven't actually met yet because it's been pandemic time. So, we've Zoom time together, but some of them go back, way back. And I'm so lucky to have them like in my corner. I'm so pleased. So yeah, electchi.ca for more information. And if you know people, get them to sign up. Get them to do a step, which is actually it's something that many Canadians don't do, is actually to take a political party membership. Like less than 5% of Canadians hold a political party membership. And I think that's really, from a political science perspective, super interesting and kind of nerdy. And I would love for us to like play with the idea of like what membership can mean, right? For me, it means the chance for Ontarians, for Torontonians, to back a woman who believes in systems change in our government.
So that is how somebody would vote for you at this stage. They would
Yes,
become a member of the Ontario Liberal Party so that they can vote for you to become the candidate for Fort York Spadina.
that's right. And
Yeah.
you only have to be 14. Mm, just saying.
14. Awesome. Get all your kids out there on the website. All the links that anyone could need are in the chat. Chi, it's been such a pleasure. Is there anything that we didn't have a chance to talk about that you want to talk about while people are gathered here? I know that you're going to be doing this check-in with Chi more. This isn't the only time that you're doing this, but I want to give the final word to you, of course.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. No, just to say that I am so excited and so honored to be able to do this. I feel like this is a deep privilege to get to, step into this conversation and to ask the question, what does it take to change and radicalize politics, to hold space and to really transform this place so that it actually belongs to people? When I worked on the Hill, one of the things I used to love doing if I was there sort of at a late evening is I'd pop out um, and see what tourists were lurking about and say, "Hey, come on, come take a look." And we'd like go and run around the House of Commons and I'd show them like different spots and stuff. Because these buildings, these places, these seats of power belong to us. And we need to and we need to feel comfortable there. And I want us to have that. That's my mission.
I am going to walk away from this talk picturing a young Chi accosting tourists saying, run around in here with me because this is yours. I love that image. I love it. I love it.
Thanks,
Um,
Hannah.
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I believe in you so much. Anything you set your mind to, I know that you could do. So I'm just really happy to be here. So everybody who came to this chat, thank you so much. All the links are in the chat. Thanks, Chi. Have a great
Thank you,
evening.
Hannah. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you for spending the evening with us. We're so delighted.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.